Hi, I'm Andrew and welcome to Offshore Audio. In this video, I'm going to go through some more advanced routing. So if you haven't seen the previous video on more basic routing, I'll link to that up here. In this video, we're going to look at taking inputs from a variety of sources, not just in blocks, maybe from non-sequential inputs, and we're going to arrange them in a way that we can use them really, really easily, just to make our life easier. We're mixing something simple like a conference, but we're taking our microphones from loads of different places. As well as that, we'll just do a quick review of using DCAs, just to show you a real-world example of how I use them when I'm working. So without further ado, let's jump in. So I'm in another venue today, and I thought I would just talk a little bit about slightly more advanced routing. As I said last time, some consoles, such as the Behringer X32 that I had in the last video, and this Midas M32, some consoles like these route in blocks, as I showed you last time. So, I can select AES, which is my stage box, or I can select local, which is on the back of this. What happens then is it spills into certain fader groups. And on this console, I have 8 faders, and then I've got my second set of 8 faders here are used for a different group. So this is DCAs currently, and then I can have buses and such over here. What if I want to collect multiple sources from multiple different places, sound from multiple sources, let's say, and collect all of them on a group of 8 faders here? Some consoles, like Yamaha consoles, allow you to have custom fader layers where you just pick and choose all the faders that you want to gather. On these consoles, you do it a little differently. So I'm just going to show you an example on this console to show you that it's possible and how you might go about it. The way I routed this console is my first 8 faders, inputs 1 to 8, these faders here, I block routed into AES 50 A 1 to 8. That's my stage box. It's actually in the cupboard over there because this is more of a conference venue and it's not bands that are playing right now. But the principle, again, remains the same. So I've got 4 wireless mic channels in that cupboard. The receivers are sending into the stage box in the cupboard. Great, so I get the 4 of them here. But I'm going to need 2 extra microphones today. But I don't have antennas set up for those microphones, so I'm going to place the receivers in the room. So what I'll do is I've set my second block of faders to local 1 to 8. So that's the inputs on the back of this console. So when I select inputs 9 to 16 on the front of this, these here receive their input from the back of this console. And that's great. So now I've got my 2 extra microphones coming in here. But that's really inconvenient if I'm muting and unmuting people's microphones and I've got to switch between 2 pages. What if I've got 3 people from page 1 and 1 person from page 2 and I want to be on top of their volume levels? Not ideal. But what I can do on this console, and what you can most likely do on every other digital console, is even though I routed in a block, I can further refine the routing inside that block. So I've got my first 4 microphone channels here, and I have these 2 channels here that I want to be my other microphones. So what I do is I've selected it, I've gone to the home menu and the config menu for this channel. So it might be different on whatever mixer you're using, but quite likely it's going to be it's going to be the configuration or the input settings for the channel, not for the console or blocks as a whole. You're looking for the individual channel. And what I can do after I've paged over from home to config is down here on the side, I can select the source. And what this does is it lets me select one of the other sources that I routed into the console from the routing page. So since page 2, which is 9 to 16, is my local inputs here, on my first page with my config menu, I can actually change it from, it was on input 5, which it says here is A05, to input 9, which it says here is input 01, local input 1. So now I've got my microphone, which used to be on page 2. It's still on page 2, by the way. But I have a copy of it on this input channel here. And I've done the same with this second channel. So now I have all 6 microphones on page 1, even though 4 of my microphones are coming in on a stage box into page 1 essentially, inputs 1 to 8, and 2 of them are coming in locally on page 2, inputs 9 to 16. So again, what I've done, I have my routing, block 1, page 1, AES 50, A1 to 8 in the cupboard. Block 2, page 2, local input 1 to 8 on the back of the console. Page 1, the natural first 4 faders, and then faders 5 and 6, I've found the configuration for those individual channels, and I have changed them to receive 9 and 10 from this mixer, because on page 2, inputs 9 to 16, 9 and 10 are my local inputs, channels 1 and 2 on the back of this console. A further thing that I've done is I've also set up, I have some various other sources. I've got playback from film today, so that comes in on yet another channel, but I have also put that in on this first page. So I have all of the faders that I need, all of the channels that I need on this first page, even though they come from 3 separate input sources. Fantastic, eh? Another thing that I've done is I've set up DCAs for everything, which I'm pretty sure we covered before. DCAs are just digital control amplifiers. It stands for digital control groups. They are essentially a sort of master fader. I could get into more detail, but they're a sort of master fader for the channels here. So on my first one here, I have a jack. I've written jack. It's just my playback that I've got. This little jack here. But that's buried deep in here somewhere. It's on page 3, my auxiliary in 1 and 2. But I don't need to go to this page. I just need to turn it up, or it's this one rather. Channel 23 and 24. But I don't need access to this page. Once it's plugged in, set up and turned up, I just set a DCA and I can control the output of this with this fader here. So I can just navigate away from this page, have all my microphones and things that need balanced here, and control the input from the jack, the mini jack, over here. I've done that as well with my HDMI input, that's the film, all of the microphones, and any other auxiliary inputs that I have. There might be another laptop playing sound. So to assign these, it varies from console to console. You might have to go into a menu, but some of them, these ones in particular, these consoles have quite an intelligent way of mapping them out. I know it's kind of similar across most Midas consoles. You can just hold the select button on your DCA and press the channels that you want to be in this DCA group. So before I had these 4 channels, and now I add these 2 extra microphones. Now all 6 of my microphones are on this DCA, which means that if people are not on the stage, I can mute them. Or if we don't get a proper sound check and it turns out all the microphones are too loud, I can just really quickly bring them down or up or whatever. So I can actually do most of my mixing just on these 3 faders. So just to recap what that was, routing, as we covered in the last video, is usually done from some sort of routing menu. And I've done it in this console in blocks. However, I further refined it by going into the individual channel settings and finding the individual input for this channel. Because if you think of your faders are just pages of inputs and you can assign sound to them. So what I've done is I've collated sound from multiple different pages and collected them all on page 1 so that I have them all at my fingertips when I need them. To make life even easier, I've also created DCAs with the different elements of today's conference, if you will. I've gathered all of that here as well, so I have full control. And I've also got a spare DCA and a spare input channel in case someone wants some other kind of playback. So that's me on top of things. Hopefully you found that helpful. Let me know if you did. Let me know if you work this way, or maybe let me know if there's any other consoles that I've missed that have a completely different way of routing. Also, let me know if you want to see some stuff on different styles of consoles. I've mostly been doing it on the Midas and Behringer consoles because they're easier to sort of understand the workflow. It's quite simple. Some of the other ones can be less user-friendly. I have a free workshop all about this stuff, which I'll link to down below. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.